Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. Yes, I say final episode of the Weekend Crusaders. It's been a fun year. It's been a very, very fun year. It's been a lot of movies. Was it 250 movies total?
Something like, let me see, it was 250 exactly. Yep.
Yeah, 50 episodes, 5 movies in each movie. We want to keep going with this. We do. But the problem is we started to look at next year, and it's like we're only gaining a day. So the movies are probably going to be the same films every year. And we decided, you know what? We don't want to stop doing shows because we like doing shows together. But we're probably going to take about 1, maybe 2 year break from the Weekend Crusaders. It's very, very hard to get 5 movies watched every week on top.
It started feeling like homework.
It really did feel like homework.
And it's very hard we have other ideas for other shows, and it's very hard to do those when you already have 5 every week you have to do.
Exactly.
Reviews and new releases. So
exactly.
It's like, let's take some time off from this.
Literally these last 2 weeks alone. It's just been like all these end of year movies. We gotta get the Weekend Crusaders watched. We gotta do this. Heaven forbid if we have trivia matches to study for as well. But so this is gonna be at least the final episode of the Weekend Crusaders, at least until 2023, 2024, or whatever we decide to come back and do it again. At least then it'll be a new 3 days for every episode. So we'll have different kinds of movies. It'll be a lot more fun to do it that way. But yes, so this will be our final one. That does not mean that Brian and I are done. We have some other great ideas that we have set up for next year. They're just not going to be every week. Probably maybe every couple weeks, every couple shows a month kind of thing. We do have some fun ideas coming up next year that we are excited to do. It just won't be the Weekend Crusaders. But now that we've got that out of the way, we're at the end of the year, which means that we are going to talk about all 250 movies again. No, we're not.
Oh, God.
It's like I was not prepared for this. But just like we did at the end of June, we had our mid-year show where we talked about our favorites and worst movies of the first 6 months. We're at the end of the year, so now we are going to be talking about the same thing, but we're going to compile all 12 months worth of movies because that's the way Brian wanted to do it. So we're going to go over my personal top 10 worst stinker movies that we've talked about this year. Brian's going to have his top 10. We're going to have our 5 best and worst picks from the other person, which I'm sure there's going to be some hearts being broken there. Then we have our best overall films that we talked about in terms of revisited and feature films. And then, of course, Brian, I do most of the homework, like the box office stuff, but Brian does the actor tally marks where he keeps track of every actor, actress, and director that's been in all these movies. And we're going to give off who was the number 1 director we watched this year, who had the most stinker films, who had the most movies overall, who had the most positive movies. We're going to be talking about all that on this episode. But first things first, we normally leave these for last, but we want to leave the best stuff for last. We are going to start off with our stinkers. It is our top 10 worst stinker films of the year, hands down. I do not know what's on Brian's list. Brian does not know what's on my list.
I couldn't make a list. We haven't watched a bad movie this year.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Every movie has been a 5-star classic. We actively just pretended to hate all these films just to throw you guys off. We actually really, really loved all of them. Now, granted, if I had my choice, I would have made It Follows my number 1 worst film of the year, but it was literally my pick, so it wasn't a part of this category, so it is not in any ranking. But we're going to be talking about our worst stinkers. Brian, did you have any honorable mentions before we actually crack into our top 10s? Ones that were so bad but just did not quite make the top 10.
Stinkers is one I had a lot of trouble, and my list changed on a daily basis when I was looking at it, trying to break it down to a list, because there's a lot that could have been in my 10 worst. A few that didn't quite make the cut, but would definitely have been worthy for it. The Avengers. Of course, not the 1998 version, not the Marvel one. Alice in Wonderland, which I think was in my top 5 worst at the mid-year.
It was in my top 10, but it is not. It flutter-whacked out of my top 10 for the.
We had a rough second half of the year on these.
Yeah, yes.
Double Team managed to make it out of the top 10 for me. and House of the Dead, just barely. Although that one was in and out of there many, many times.
Okay, so 2 of your honorable mentions are in my top 10.
Okay.
So we will definitely be talking about 2 of those. For me, and yes, when we were at the half-year mark, we were talking about some really, really bad stinkers. We were not prepared for the latter half of the year because I think how of your top 10, how many are from the first half of the year compared to the latter half?
Oh, I'd have to go back and see, but I'm guessing.
How dare you not have all of our movies memorized when we talked about it?
Well, you didn't know this question was coming. I think of my top 10, I think 4 of them were on the list before.
I'm the same boat. 6 of them are from the latter half of the year.
Yeah.
4 of them are from the first half. So we'll be kind of revisiting some of the ones we've already talked about. For me, for my honorable mentions, I have 3 of them. Only 1 is from the first half of the year, which was Double Team. We love the basketball puns. It's a bad movie, but it was not as bad as the other films that we're talking about. Ringmaster or The Ringmaster or Ringmaster, that one just barely missed my top 10. And of course, Psycho just missed outside of my top 10 for horrible films. But now that we got the honorable mentions out of the way, now let's go to our actual top 10. I'm going to start with my 10 because I'm pretty sure now how we'll do this so you guys understand. I'm going to say what mine is. If Brian does not have it in his top 10, then we'll talk about it. If it is higher up on his list, then we're going to hold off and we're going to wait till we get to his higher up number. So that's how we're basically going to do it. Just so that way we're not talking about it twice because it's just there's no point. But my number 10 is a film that we talked about earlier in the year. It also has one of our most, I don't want to say memed, but it's one of our most callbacks that we've had of this year. And that is Dragon Ball Evolution. Top 10? Not top 10?
Did not make my top 10.
It didn't make it. So yours was nothing.
It was, oh God. It's one of those that I think it probably was in my top 10. And then it was like in the honorable mentions, and then it was out of everything. And I don't know if maybe just some distance from it made me forget how silly it was. I don't know, but it just didn't quite make the cut for me.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Evolution. It's now granted we're not going to spend like tons of time talking about this because we already spoke a lot of these movies ad nauseum. But yeah, this movie, like I said, nothing. Obviously, one of the highlight points of this movie was when he literally did a head slide on a car that destroyed a car.
Yeah.
The first half of this movie definitely was more enjoyable and stinker worthy than the latter half, which was just boring as hell. The cast, even though I like Emmy Rossum, the cast is horrendously bad. The first like 10 minutes was just a random fight happening as it was trying to give you backstory. And like were they fighting on like tightrope or some shit?
Something like that.
Oh God, it's bad. I know like every fan of like the anime tries to actively forget that this movie ever existed. You and I had no prior knowledge of Dragon Ball Z when this came out. We didn't watch the anime. We just knew that it was a bad film, so we picked it, and it did not disappoint, and that is why it was my number 10. What was your number 10?
Yeah, that dropped from 4 to 10 for you in the second half of the year.
There's a lot of bad movies we watched this year.
My number 10 worst movie of the year was also my number 4 at mid-year, and that is the classic Furry Vengeance.
We will be talking about that still.
We'll talk about that later. Okay,
let's talk about that later. So why don't you go ahead and go with your 9 then?
My number 9 was also from the first half of the year, and that was my number 5. So actually, it managed to jump over somehow. I don't know how. That is 50 Shades of Black.
We will also still be talking about that movie. Okay, so we'll go with my 9. My 9 is from the first half of the year as well. It was my number 4, or it was my number 3 or number 4. I think it was my number 3. It dropped to 9, and that is Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
That is not on my list. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that I remember I had seen it. Brian had never seen it, and I'm just like, you have no idea how bad this movie's going to get for you. And I remember both of us just watching this and just actively hating our lives. Like, how did Sylvester Stallone do this film? Like, it was a train wreck. It's bad. The humor, it's not funny. Sylvester Stallone just looked utterly miserable doing this movie. Oh God, I'm trying to remember something with the action sequences. I can't remember. It was like there was something like they just randomly kept shooting things or shooting at people, and there was no point to it. I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember. I'll be honest up front on this section of the show. The stinkers, I've largely purged as much information as I could from
Exactly. That's why I said like, we're not going to waste too much time talking about it because we've already given too much information. But Stop My Mama Shoot.
I do remember just feeling bad for Sylvester Stallone because I mean this obviously is a horrible movie. But my biggest complaint is that people lump this in with Oscar, and Oscar's a very good movie. So anyway.
Yes, I remember you bringing up Oscar for that. So yeah, Stop My Mama Shoot was my number 9. It was my number 3, and it dropped to number 9. What is your number 8?
My number 8, I want to say, is a new entry. I'm just double checking. Yeah, it wasn't on my mid-year. Making his second appearance on the list, Brendan Fraser and Dudley Do Right.
Not on mine. So let's talk about it.
Not on yours.
Well, no, because that was the All Stinker show, and I didn't count the All Stinker show.
Oh, I didn't realize that came from that show.
But that's fine because I think that was your pick for the All Stinker show.
Okay, well, I'm going to count it then.
If that was the case in Napoleon Dynamite's number 1.
It's still, even if it was from the special show, it's still one of the movies we watched as a stinker on here.
Yes.
Like I know I did, like on the list of my judgment of your picks, I did not count the stinker.
I didn't judge.
But for the stinker list, I did. Dudley Do Right it's a movie I had never seen, but it looked bad and I'd heard bad things about it, and so I made it my pick that stinker week. It's one of those movies that you should be able to forgive because it's clearly made for a younger audience. And it's Brendan Fraser, who playing the goofy, lovable, kind of dim-witted guy, which he did in several movies around this time. But it's so bad. You got Alfred Molina, who is playing literally the mustache twirling villain. He's perfectly cast in it.
He's trying his best.
But then they don't do anything with him. They make some weird decisions with him. Sarah Jessica Parker, who is just annoying as the love interest.
Unlikable.
And I don't remember everything I didn't like about this movie. I just remember just the way that the story was just so ridiculous. And it was one of those movies that couldn't figure out what its audience really was. And it was
I remember from it that we were watching it halfway through and we're like, is Alfred Molina supposed to be the bad guy? Because he's actively making the area around it prosper.
That's right. I do remember that. Like, he's actually doing good for the town.
And it wasn't until the very end where we're like, oh, wait, he is a bad guy. We have to have him do bad things. There were musical numbers that you were like, are these seriously
musical? See, you're reminding me of all these things. The musical numbers. Oh, my God.
There was like
whole long dance
sequences that took like 5 minutes each. You're like, we're seriously wasting this much time. There was a cartoon at the beginning of the movie that like wasted 5 minutes. Like they were trying so drastically to stretch the time. We were literally trying to pick every woman in the crowd that would be a better fit for Brendan Fraser than Sarah Jessica Parker. And then there was the whole end with like the news crew and him like attacking like the Indian.
Oh, they show up and like film this assault with the hovercrafts and everything.
Yes. Yeah. It was, like I said, that's all. Like that's all rushing back to me, like PTSD of a bad movie.
Right.
But yeah, it was. There's a reason why it was on our All Stinker episode. But like I said, if we were going with that, if I was counting that episode, then Napoleon Dynamite's number 1. But we kept that off the thing. So that was your number 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 8 is also a new one from this year. We talked about a movie in our honorable mentions that is a lot like this film, and that is Simon Says.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so we will be talking about Simon Says later. Okay, so I will go to my 7 because you have already mentioned it, and my number 7 is Furry Vengeance.
Yeah.
Furry Vengeance is, once again, Brendan Fraser. We love him, but we picked on his ass so hard this year. This movie, where to start? I will say this, the post-credits were one of the worst fucking things I think we've seen this year, where they actively were making scenes just for the post-credits.
Yeah, there have been movies where, like, throughout the filmmaking, they had them perform part of a song because they were going to put it all together over the end credits.
Yeah.
But this one, they staged new scenes just for that.
Like, what was it? Wasn't Brooke
Britney Spears thing?
Doing, oops, I did it again.
Yeah.
That wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah.
You had Ken Jeong, who I'm very hit or miss on Ken Jeong. Rob Riggle, I like for the most part, but he's horrible in this. Brendan Fraser is just, you felt sorry for the guy in this movie because it's like, oh man, how the mighty have fallen. What happened to you in this film? The animal jokes just did not land. This was an embarrassing film. Like, we were actively embarrassed for everyone.
I felt bad for Brendan Fraser. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then like I said, the movie ended, and we're like, okay, thank God it's over. And then the post credits, and we're like, oh my God, is this seriously still going on? And it went on for the entire credits. I'm pretty sure there was a rap scene in it as well. I think Ken Jeong rapped or something, or it might have just been a fueled nightmare I had about this movie. But yeah, Furry Vengeance. Oh my God, it was god awful. What was your number 7?
My number 7. I have to think this is on your list. It's Megaforce.
Megaforce did not make my top 10.
It didn't make your list?
I think I forgot about it. I honestly think I forgot that movie ever existed, and it did not crack my top 10. I apologize. That is definitely worse than Double Team, or not Double Team, but Dragon Ball Z.
So Megaforce being this 1982 sci-fi thing, it was one of those ones that came like in the it wasn't even. We thought it was sci-fi. It totally advertised as a sci-fi thing, and it turned out to not. It was just about like this military unit. Some of the weapons happened to have like these laser blast type things.
It's a low budget GI Joe film,
but it was so low budget. It was so bad. I mean, the vehicles looked like they were just motorcycles covered in like cardboard. It's like something like your friends knew would have made on your bicycles to make it look like a space vehicle. And you had the people, Brian Boswick and the rest of the cast with the really bad 80s hair and the tight pants. You can like tell what religion they are. It's just that's Robin Williams' line. I'm not going to take credit for that one. That's a Robin Williams line.
Religion they are.
But then wear those really, really tight pants. You had the woman who shows up for just basically, and then she disappears for the whole movie. But supposedly they're in love
until the very end.
And then you have that part, and then you have the rocket motorcycle that not only can just take off towards the ship, but does that barrel roll with a smile at his face. Just like there was just so many things about this, which it almost gets credit for being it would almost get credit for being one of those that's so fun to watch with somebody because it's so bad. But aside from all the moments that you are fun to make fun of, so much of it is just dreadfully boring. Like nothing happens in this movie.
It's so dull. Because I remember
the villain, like you couldn't tell like who was at war and why and what is going on.
And like the person that they like made the villain was like best buds with Barry Bostwick's characters. He was like
yeah, they were still
friends. So who's the bad guy?
Yeah.
Like I remember the first 5 minutes was just random like battle sequences, and then it like felt like almost like a oh god, what do you call the army shows? Like USO shows? With like the motorcycle bikes just doing popping wheelies and stuff. And then it's like, okay, now let's tell the movie. And the problem is the movie's dull and boring as shit. And then the end happens, and then it's just
and half your money went to motorcycle.
And then oh yeah, I remember they just wasted so much screen time just watching the plane take off. It's like we literally spent like a full minute just watching a plane come out of like its area and turn and like wait
and take off, and you watch it in the air. And
it's just like, is this actually really needed right now? Like, could we have cut this? And it's like, no, you have to.
We paid for a plane. We're going to use it to fill some screen time.
Oh my god! I just remember you and I were just like, seriously, why is this still going on?
Yeah.
God, that was your 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your 6?
My 6. Oh, this is not going to be on your list. But it was my number 3 at mid-year, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
It did not. That is not my 10. No.
I
hate it, but I don't hate it that bad.
No, I even said when we first talked about this, I'm not a Turtles fan. I mean, I watched the cartoon some, but I was a little too old by the time that kind of hit. I played the video game, so I don't know if that counts. But the movies were kind of like, even the first movie, which everyone says, oh, the first one's so good.
It is.
Thought, man, it's just like dudes in suits trying to do bad karate, and the jokes weren't even all that funny. It was like jokes that might work, and they worked for people I think who were of the right age at the time. if you were a little kid who watched this. But by the time we got to the third one, even the fans of the series were like, this movie is dog shit. And it's just like they had to involve the whole time travel element. They had a guy who was played by the same guy who played Casey, is it?
Yeah,
I,
they had
I,
like dual roles. Yeah.
Elias Koteas, of course, but he also plays like this guy in the past. We thought there'd be some connection. Nope, it just decided to have the same actor play it for some reason.
They just wanted him to do
And it
more.
was just, and it was just like there's so many things like that in the movie that just make no sense, and the jokes flopped. And like I said, even for fans of this movie, they were just like, this movie is not good.
The
And
suit started to wear because you could start seeing like holes under the eyes. Like,
oh yeah, trying to use the same suits. They don't want to pay to build villains. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on my top 10, but yeah, Turtles 3 it effectively killed a franchise for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
My number 6 is one that you already mentioned, and that was my number 1 from last year, or from the first half, 50 Shades of Black. 50 Shades of Black. Oh my, I think that was actively the first stinker on our show that we went so hard on how much we hated this movie. Still, hands down, probably one of the worst performances of the year, which was the roommate, the Rebel Wilson wannabe character. Yeah. Marlon Wayans. I think we've actually kind of gotten. I love how I'm now saying harder and then softer all at the same time. 50 Shades of Black. I feel like we've kind of relaxed or have gone soft on this movie because we've seen so much bad stuff after this. But this movie is a horrible fucking film. It's a horrible spoof movie, which it's funny. Oh, yeah, because it was the Stinker Show. I was like, how is this on my list but not Disaster Movie? But that's because Disaster Movie was on the All Stinker Show, and I didn't include it. But, yeah, 50 Shades of Black was a horrible, horrible film. And I actively felt myself internally dying while watching this movie.
Yeah, this is spoof movies can be done really well, and they can be done really badly, and this was definitely a very bad example of it. And I think the only reason it dropped lower on my list is just because I honestly, unless you could mention something that might remind me, but I could not tell you a single scene of this movie. I like don't remember the specifics of it because I think I just wanted to forget about it. And I think because it was one of our first ones, I was just like, didn't remember it as well. So
I could tell you certain scenes, but I don't want to do that to you.
Yeah.
Because you're one of my best friends, and I don't want to. If you've gotten it out of your brain, I don't want to put that trauma back in.
And I appreciate that.
But yes, 50 Shades of Black is horrendously bad. My number 5 is one that you also mentioned at the time. I think it was your number 10. It's one that we talked about this year, and that is the Avengers. I remember it was, what was it, Downton Abbey bad. In terms of like, what is this? Is this James Bond? Is it Downton Abbey? Is it Kingsman? I don't know what this is. But this movie, if there's one thing that came out of this movie, it was the biggest, you and me going, well, no. I remember now. You weren't paying attention. You had your head down. You were on your phone. And I went, what the fuck? And you go, what? And you look at me and go, what? What's happening? I was like, what the fuck is going on? Where we actively lost our minds. It is hands down we've seen some bad movies, but this scene broke us. It physically broke Brian and me, where we just lost our minds. And that is when Sean Connery, one of the most beloved, respected actors in our time, who's the villain of this film, just all of a sudden the scene just jumps ahead and he's talking to a room full of stuffed bears, and there's no reason for it at all. It is the most utterly ridiculous scene, and then they start running around and get killed. And how you and I have gone through our whole life not knowing that this exists.
I'm so happy I didn't know about it going in there either. Because the moment we both were like, what the fuck is going on?
I remember after that scene ended, we paused it. We were looking it up, and it's like, how did we not know about this? Just
and how did Sean Connery do this?
What paid it? And then we watched this video of him promoting the movie. Like, oh, he got paid a shitload of money. Did not talk about this. Yeah, Avengers is Uma Thurman is horrible in the film. The plot is aimless. The whole final battle sequence was stupid, but nothing top. Oh yeah, what was it? The very, very opening scene, like he's walking down the street and he randomly just keeps getting attacked. And like there's the woman with the baby stroller, and she just goes whoosh. And like the like that's not how you throw a knife. Like she just like did this like whoosh thing and like barely missed him, but nothing tops the Bears.
No,
Like,
this will
our
always
number
be the
one-
teddy bear costume movie.
Our number ones are our number one worst movies of the years, but nothing tops the Bears and Avengers as us both losing our fucking minds collectively.
I was pretty sure that someone had laced my drink with acid or something at that point.
or somehow the movie got switched to like the only reason we didn't know that we were still watching the same movie is because Sean Connery was still there, and had he not been in that scene, we're like, did the because I remember we were watching it. I was like, did we switch movies? And no one
actually put in the furry porn parody of it or something.
Exactly. What's your number 5?
Number 5, you did not include because I was just using different parameters, and that was Disaster Movie. Because I put that one in. Now, like I've already talked about parody movies. This is one of those ones that when they started pumping them out to the point where they said, we're not even going to wait for the movies to come out. We're going to just throw in random scenes based on the trailers we've seen for these movies that are coming out this year.
Yeah.
And you could tell it's just like they had just like these random individual jokes. They were the laziest, lamest jokes you could think of. They would just throw in scene after scene. So it doesn't even work as a spoof. There's not even like really a fluid story to connect the whole thing. It's just random scene after random scene. When you have Carmen Electra in your main cast and it was just
people.
Yeah. Kim Kardashian was the other ones I was trying to think of. But I mean, it's just
she's one of the best performances in the movie.
Everything in the movie is just lazy and dumb, and it's so clearly thrown together. Probably in like 2 weeks they made this movie tops, because I mean you have like that. I remember the Kung Fu Panda parody, and there's this dude in like the worst costume that I'm pretty sure my mom could have made better for me in my grade school play or something.
And then, like the panda's like a murderer, and like tries to, and then he eats one of the characters, and then like the Alvin and the Chipmunks are basically that part was not bad. But Alvin and Chipmunks are basically like murderous gremlins.
Yeah,
remember,
and again, all these movies that they're parodying had not come out. Like there's a few that had come out like just before they made the movie, but then I think 75% of the movies had not come out when they made this movie. They did it just based on here's a line in the trailer, so we're gonna make a spoof of that line in our movie. And
what was the actor's name who had like 12 different roles in the film?
Ike Barinholtz?
Yes, Ike. Dude had like 12 different roles in this film. Like he would basically pop up, disappear, and then 5 minutes later he's like Batman.
He was like Javier Bardem. He was Hellboy. He was Batman. He was a police officer. Yeah, he was everything.
But I remember like the underlying plot of this was Cloverfield, and they were trying to get like across town, but like it took 40 minutes for them just to get across the street, because every time they took 5 feet, another movie parody showed up and stopped them.
The only reason they went to Cloverfield was because it was a trip from spot A to spot B, so it was an excuse to run into this person, then this person, then this person, then this person. It was just
and everything was just, oh my god, it was mind-numbingly. We were like,
it was.
I remember we were keeping a tally on something on this. Was it the movies, or was it? Oh god, it wasn't how many movies they were spoofing. I can't remember.
I don't remember what we kept a tally on.
We were in the 20s on it. I remember that much. We got into the 20s on what we were calculating, and it was bad.
I think I remember it was because they would have somebody show up, and it's so shitty their parody of it that they wouldn't even trust to be able to even tell who they're supposed to be.
Name drop.
Somebody would show up and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" You'd be like, "Hey, it's American Idol's Ryan Seacrest," or "Hey, look.
Dr. Phil."
Yeah, because people aren't going to recognize who this is with this shitty makeup and costume job we did. So we have to announce every character.
Yeah, we got into the 20s on that. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
What is that was your 5, right?
That was my 5.
Okay, what's your 4?
My 4 was my number 2 at mid-year. So it managed to get some worse ones.
I've officially gone through all of my mid-years. So everything that I've got going forward is all new shit.
Yeah, my number 4 is Speed Racer.
You have such a hatred for this movie.
I do have such a hatred for this movie.
Like, it's not a good movie, but it is not.
Because, I mean, I know that Sean's favorite directors, especially recently, is the Wachowskis. So he loves everything they've made, especially their newest movie. But
we literally talked about 2 of their movies as a stinker this year with that and
but
Jupiter.
they really have not made a good movie since The Matrix. But Speed Racer is one of those ones that bafflingly has its fans. Now, I don't know if it's nostalgia. I don't know what it is. But this movie is just so bad. Does it look pretty? Is it colorful and frenetic? Sure. So like my little kid who basically wanted to watch it as like basically Hot Wheels, the movie, watching cars go around ramps and in circles and speed. Sure. But actually, even he was bored by the scenes that weren't racing. But the dialogue in this movie, the acting in this movie, and just the style in which it was made, which maybe they were trying to imitate the TV show, but the TV show is low budget shit. So when you try and make a live action version of low budget shit, it just looks like big budget shit. And it was just, I could not stop either rolling my eyes or doing a face palm or just shaking my head at they've wasted a great cast of people they got together with just horrible dialogue, and it was bad.
Plus, this is one of the very, very few films where I actually physically wanted to abuse a child because I hated.
That's right. That little, I don't remember his name, but yeah,
Sparks or Sparky or Sparkly or whatever the hell the little brother's name is. I actively wanted to punch this kid in the face. I hated the character that badly. I was like, I want to cause physical harm to this little kid.
Sparky, yeah.
Yeah, granted, the kid's like 14 in the film, but still, I wanted to punch this kid in the face. That is how bad this movie. Like, had they removed that kid, I probably wouldn't have hated this movie even remotely as bad as Brian did. I still don't hate it as bad as Brian did, but I actually wanted to cause physical harm to this child or young teen. Yeah, that movie is all over the place, and it's overly long, way longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes of Speed Racer. I mean, come on.
My number 4, I am shocked that I'm hoping that it's in your 3, because if this movie's not in your 10, what the fuck's wrong with you? My number 4 is Superman 4: Quest for Peace.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, I was gonna say, if this is not in your top, we're gonna have some serious issues. Then I will go to my 3, which is something that you already mentioned. This is a movie that I have actively hated ever since I saw it for the very first time in a theater, where I actively Mystery 3 Scienced it in the theater as I was watching it, because this movie is dog shit to the nth degree, and that's House of the Dead. I hate this film. I verbally despise this fucking film. This is a sci-fi film to the nth degree, and this was made for a wide audience for theaters. I love the video game. I think the video game is a hell of a lot of fun to play. This movie's dog shit. I hate everything. There's not one redeeming quality about this damn film. To the magical island that doesn't rain, even though if you go 20 feet off the island, it's pouring like a monsoon. To them not fully having the budget to make up all the zombies in the movie, or
the budget for the world's biggest rave.
Yeah, the world's biggest rave, which is basically
like 20 people
standing there with a big Sega logo. Where was a Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse did a way fucking better job of making a rave like a rave than this movie did. Or the fact that like all these regular like college kids or whatever have the abilities of the fucking Matrix. Also the film narrator spoiling the movie in the first 2 minutes. Oh god, I can keep going.
What about the actual intercutting of the video game shots?
The intercutting of the video game shots, to them having unlimited ammo in this movie for kids who have never also shot guns, who can jump 10 feet in the air and have perfect aim, to them not unveiling the villain till the final 5 minutes of the movie and then having a fight scene. I could keep going.
Which we had already known what was coming because she had fencing.
Oh yeah, because they had to mention that she was a fencer. And yeah, Brian, keep going, because I could just keep going.
Honestly, you hit most of the main points, but yeah, this ended up my honorable mentions. Although actually, if I took out the stinker episode, this would be 2 spots higher. It would have been number 9. It's not good. It made my list at times, and it got pushed off just by some things I thought were worse. But it's bad.
It's really bad. What is you did your 4, right?
I did.
Okay, so what's your number 3?
3 is Simon Says.
Okay, that was my number 8. So
yeah, Simon Says is the movie that we thought was a sequel or spinoff to Double Team,
and it's so not.
Nothing to do with it, even though he's playing essentially the same character.
He's playing the same exact character.
And this is another one where, for the most part, I've forgotten most of this movie.
Let's see, there was the two Buddhist guys.
There was the two Buddhist guys. There was Dane Cook, who was just totally trying to do his best Jim Carrey impression. And
He's 100% doing Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura.
Totally over the top. There was the other woman who he'd like randomly have sex with, even though they were like totally against each other.
Where they literally have a camera shot up below a waterbed of them fighting / having sex.
Yeah, and now was it Double Team that had the basketball references, right?
No, it was Double Team. This had no basketball references.
Yeah, this one they got Dennis Rodman in it, not a single reference.
Hold on. Just because we brought up Double Team, it was our honorable mentions, but we cannot forget the iconic tiger.
The tiger.
The iconic
if
tiger.
We had our best moments of the year, that would definitely
be. The best moments of the year where a tiger tips off what's his name?
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
No, it wasn't Jean-Claude. It was the villain. Oh fuck.
Oh.
Sin City. Expendables.
Powers Booth.
No, Iron Man 2.
I don't know who we're talking about here. Oh, Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, that's right.
Where the tiger basically tells Mickey Rourke,
like the sniper.
Huh? There's a sniper up above. We're going to go, did that tiger just tip him off? That there's a gun? Anyway, that was from Double Team. I forgot that we forgot that. That was one of our
That's just it. Those two movies have blended together, so I'm trying to remember what was in that movie.
Yeah, that was one of our highlighted moments of the year. Was that damn tiger.
It's just bad. And it's another one of those movies where we weren't even sure what the plot of it was supposed to be, because it's like somebody had kidnapped somebody's daughter, but then like that wasn't even the main plot.
The daughter didn't even know she was kidnapped.
We're not sure why he was there in the first place. He wasn't looking for the daughter. And
yeah. Like the first 10 minutes was an action sequence, but we didn't know what was going on. And then it just somehow tied into the very end. And at the very end, Dane Cook became he was just like this bumbling idiot. But then when it came to the third act, all of a sudden he was like this hotshot shooter who could kill everybody kind of thing. Dennis Rodman was not the worst part of this film, which is very shocking to say that he wasn't the worst part.
He wasn't good, but he wasn't good,
but he wasn't the worst part. There was those was it remote control bees in the movie where like
remote control bees. And was this also the one with the really, really, really awful stunt double with a way bigger afro than he had?
Yes, we could always count how many times Rodman wasn't on screen because they had a colored afro or a colored hair thing as almost it looked like a helmet. It looked like an actual helmet on the guy. And then they didn't have the right size.
Oh yeah, he was totally different height
than Rodman. And then there was one point where Rodman's running, and you're like, I've been a Chicago Bulls fan all my life. Rodman has never ran that fast in his life. That is 100% not Dennis Rodman running. Yeah, so Simon says, we actively chose this movie because of Double Team, thinking that it was a spinoff. And we found that it wasn't. We're like,
but it managed to be worse. Yeah.
Yes, it ended up being worse. That was your 3, right?
Yep.
All right, what's your 2?
My number 2 is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Let's fucking talk about this god awful shit film.
We're not to go in great depth because obviously we've already talked about it in the show. But
this way, go back and watch our episode of this.
Yeah, definitely go back and watch it because it's just because this movie. I mean, first of all, it's a Superman franchise, which even when you get to 3, a lot of people think 3 is a big step down from 2, but it still has its point. It's entertaining. It is what it is, even though it took a little bit more of a comedic angle. But this is one where not only is the story just shitty, and you got this shitty villain in Nuclear Man, but you have apparently they cut the budget by 90% because first of all I remember they kept reusing the same shot of Superman flying at the camera just in different blue screens, but it looks like somebody cut it out with paper with some scissors and did it.
Yeah,
that you see wires all the time when Nuclear Man and Superman are fighting. So the special effects are awful. You got John Cryer, who I actually like John Cryer, but he's playing this dumbass character
Ducky, but
from a whole different movie. You got Gene Hackman there just collecting a paycheck. And then the fact that the whole reason the movie...
You don't forget about Frankenstein Superman.
Frankenstein. Oh. Yeah, I forgot. I did forget about Frankenstein Superman.
And the whole time that they're fighting, they're playing
Yeah, the soundtrack for this movie. There's just so many things. And then the whole thing about it is even Christopher Reeve, the only reason he did this movie was because he's like, I'll do it, but only if I can have huge input into it, because he wanted to have this whole plot line of, basically denuclearizing the world because, that was kind of a hot button topic at the time. And for him to go do this and for it to be just a piece of shit, I felt so bad for him. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you made your bed. Just lie.
This movie is so bad. Not to mention, Margot
Kidder, who
Kidder,
doesn't even need to be in this movie.
I mean, there was one point I think where Superman just literally throws her off a building just to prove that he's Superman for a split second, so he could talk to her about how shitty things are going, and then kiss her so she forgets again. It's like, why? What was the point of that? Oh God, this movie's so bad. And then didn't we like watch like it wasn't the outtakes, was it? Was it the outtakes or was it a director's cut?
It was a bunch of deleted scenes, I think is what it was.
And there was so like there was
they were even worse.
Oh, they were even worse. But then there was also like the kid's letter to Superman, like saying that he let down the world because of
Kid had written letter to Superman and mailed it through snail mail. But yet, soon Superman shows up to respond to this letter, show up at the school. All the kids are in the same clothes because apparently they only have one set of clothes there. And it was oh my God.
And then there was the whole thing about like Superman's hair holding up like 2 tons and like
a strand of his hair is what held it up.
Yeah, just goes and just cuts. I was like,
some wire
tears. Like, how can you cut the hair? It's all this. Oh, yeah. Superman! Go back and watch the episode where we talk about Superman 4. It's a great watch. But yeah, Superman 4 is horrendous. It is. I'm not a fan of any of those movies. I think they're really bad, but 4 is god awful. That was your 2, right? 2. Okay. My number 2 is probably your number 1. So I'm gonna say it. I know it is. So how about this? I'm just gonna I mean if it's your number 2, because you already said your number 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so let's just talk about it now. We'll go to your 2. My number 2 is gonna be Brian's number 1, which is
the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Garbage Pail Kids. Yeah. Garbage Pail Kids. I remember that I picked this as a stinker as a dare to Brian because I can't remember. We had something else picked, and I was like, man, I kind of want to pick Surf Ninjas just to prank you. That or Garbage Pail Kids. You're like, for my pick, and you're like, what? Well, let me see the trailers. We watched both. And you're like, oh my God, these are bad. I go, how about I pick both? You're like, okay, do it. Let's like you were like, so like, all right, fine. I was like, you don't know what you're about to do. So you had to watch that and Surf Ninjas and Garbage Pail Kids. Oh my God, this movie. I had seen it before.
Well, see, I had never seen it, but I knew it was bad, but I had never seen it before.
I didn't remember it.
But I remember it was, we did watch the trailer for this, but it was Surf Ninjas, which I had never, at least didn't remember the trailer for. So that's the one you added on. So you moved that to your pick. But Garbage Pail Kids, I knew was going to be bad. But wow, it was so far beyond bad. It was just If you ever think that something happens now, a current trend, and they try and cash in with a quick movie, that doesn't compare at all to this. I mean, because at the time, these Garbage Pail Kids, this is the only movie I know based on trading cards, and that's not true. Mars Attacks, but it's based on trading cards, or actually stickers technically. They came out with the Garbage Pail Kids, which were hugely successful at the time for who knows what reason, but they decided to make a movie out of this. But their whole movie is just basically, let's take just only 6 of these kids, make some really, really shitty costumes, throw them on some little people, and you
had Gator Boy or Gator or whatever.
Yeah, one of them was Alligator or whatever his name.
Alligator, who had a fascination with toes.
Oh, I did forget about that.
He had a foot fetish. You had the one that always peed. He peed his pants. You had the one that snotted over everything.
Yep.
Then you had the one that was Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Hey!
Oh!
Today! And then there were like 2 or 3 others that I can't remember. And then you had the cast. You had this kid hanging out with this weird old dude.
We got Mackenzie Astin, Sean Astin's brother, John Astin's son. I feel bad for this dude. He clearly got the raw end of the careers because he's in this movie, and it's just like, I mean, and he's just some kid actor trying to do his best.
The whole plot of this movie is that he's trying to get the Garbage Pail to make kids so he can or make clothes so he can try to score with a girl who's like 5 years older than him.
and clearly just like using him for everything because she knows that he wants her, and so like she's basically just using him to try and become the successful fashion designer or
Like,
whatever.
he basically says without actually saying like, "Do this for me," and I'll like let you touch my boobs. like literally, there's a line.
Essentially.
And then we found out that there's also apparently this government thing that kidnaps you if you're ugly.
They take you to the home for the ugly.
There's literally a scene
And
where
you have people like Lincoln, who's too tall, Santa's too fat. I don't remember the rest of it.
What was it? Gandhi was in there for
Too bald or something like that.
Too bald or too skinny or something. There's literally a scene in the movie where these two guys who basically look like dog pound guys with a big net a young girl who's wearing like a Halloween mask, and they're going to effectively kidnap her and take her because she was ugly. And we're like, is this a thing? Like, what is going on? And
Didn't they show up to try? They showed up to try and like rescue him, and then they just ended up leaving and saying, "Ah, forget it." I don't remember.
No, that's not what happened at all.
I'm trying to remember what happened.
The second subplot is that the Garbage Pail Kids think that the rest of them have been captured and they're being held in this building. Eventually, they all get caught. They go in to try to save them, and the whatever the owner of the shop and the kid, they're like, "Where are all they?" And he goes, "We were too late."
Oh, that's right. They basically imply that they've already been killed, and it's
there's a garbage truck who effectively takes these people, and basically, I guess, smushes and kills them. And so the way that the story explains that they couldn't have like the budget to make more Garbage Pail Kids is that when they showed up to save said Garbage Pail Kids, that they were already too late and they got smushed and killed. And we're just like, what?
Did they say what we think we just said? We backed it up, and yeah, they're singing that.
And he literally does this movement of they got smushed and died, and then the movie's like,
and this are the two.
And then they're like, the Garbage Pail Kids are like, okay, we're like, all right, whatever, let's sing and drive away, la 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 la, and like,
oh yeah, the musical numbers, yes. Oof. It's awful. It's
but it's not my number one. My number one didn't even hit your top 10.
No.
And my number one is Popeye.
Yeah.
Popeye. I remember before we started watching, I remember I liked Popeye when I was a kid. And then we watched it. And you had the most fun watching me watch this movie.
Because I had seen this, I think, multiple times when I was a kid. You had not seen it before.
No, I had seen it when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
I remember it as a kid. I remember thinking that it was fine. But watching it now, oh my God, this movie is awful. This is a dog shit film. Between the horrible town of people who are trying to overact over everybody that has nothing to do with the plot, to the horrible performances of Shelley Duvall as Olive Oil. Large. He's large. To the horrible music. To what's the best friend's name?
Wimby,
who basically is the villain who kidnaps the
kid in exchange for a hamburger.
Oh my God, this movie is awful. And then there's like a fake octopus at the end that Popeye fights, and the entire town's basically made of like sandpaper because all is Bluto. All Bluto's do is like punch a wall and like the entire house comes down. And like the forced like romantic subplot of fucking Popeye and Olive Oil that's so forced, like, oh, we found a baby, so therefore we're together. It's like,
we both found the baby together, so I guess we have to raise it.
Yeah, I guess that we're a thing now. To basically Robin Williams having to mutter through this entire role.
Yeah.
And then basically everyone in the film walking like they don't have sea legs because they're all just stumbling around like they're all drunk. This movie's garbage. It's garbage. In my opinion, it's worse than Garbage Pail because Garbage Pail Kids at least was trying to do something new and different. It failed utterly miserably. Popeye is just god-awful in every sense of the word. There's no redeeming quality. And then there's that one point at the very end of the film where Popeye basically becomes Jesus and walks on water and dances on water. And it's just, I hated this fucking film.
I'm not going to defend the movie in pretend it's good because it's not. It just did not make my top 10. But
I hate this movie so
this
much.
is another one you should really go back and watch our episode on this one.
Yeah, it's so bad. But that's our top 10 worst stinkers of the year. Going to Brian's tally markers, we're gonna hit the directors. What was the most watched director of the year for us?
Let me get back to that list here. All right, so I just lost it. So we had a lot of directors who basically tied for the most that we had that we covered in the show at just 3. We didn't have anybody that had more than 3. Let's see, take it back. Oh, actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. Kevin Smith had 4. He's the person we talked about the most. However, one of his was a stinker, that being Tusk.
Yeah.
We talked about Dogma, Zack and Miri, Tusk, and Jersey Girl. Coming in with 3 movies each were Steven Sommers, Ivan Reitman, Steven Spielberg, and Zack Snyder. Although with Steven Spielberg and Steven Sommers, one of each of those was a stinker. So
Snyder didn't have a stinker?
What's that?
No, he didn't. He didn't have a stinker.
Nope.
You're all positive. So our number 1 was Kevin Smith.
Number 1 was Kevin Smith.
But best percentage was Snyder with basically 100%.
As far as percentage, yeah, because actually Kevin Smith, Ivan Reitman, Zack Snyder, and then Tony Scott as well, all had 3 positives, but Kevin Smith had the most total before.
Gotcha. All right, next we are moving on to Brian and I's picks. Basically what we did last year is that we both picked the 5 worst picks that the other one had, and then the 5 best picks. So we're going to do the worst ones, get those out of the way. Yeah, my list, only 2 new ones added to this. So I'm not going to waste too much time on mine. I'm just going to go through mine of yours, and then you go through yours of mine. Okay, for the worst. Okay. So my 5 worst Brian picks of the year. Honorable mentions was Torque, and that was on my bottom 5 of the half mid-year mark. It got moved off. It's an honorable mention territory. And then The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. That movie's so fucking.
I love that movie so much.
That movie's so stupid. My top 5 worst picks for Brian that he picked this year. Number 5 is A Million Ways to Die in the West. I still hate that fucking film. It's not good at all. Number 4 is the hacky sack great Kiefer Sutherland in The Vanishing. Never forget the yellow sweater Kiefer Sutherland playing hacky sack. Number 3 is a movie that everyone loves that I just don't understand, which is Raising Arizona. That movie is horrible, and I don't understand why y'all love it. Number 2 is a new edition. I still don't understand. I still think Brian punked me into watching this film. I don't understand why he made me watch this, and that's Under the Rainbow. That movie is awful. That movie's not good. That movie's so not good.
Would you give me that it's better than all the stinkers we've watched at least?
No, it would have been in my stinker list had I.
Oh my god!
100% would have been in my stinker list.
You had fun watching that movie.
Your selling point for this film was you get to see Jamie Lee Curtis in lingerie. And that's literally the poster for it as well. Yeah. That was your selling point for me on this film. That movie would have been in my top 10 stinkers. And my number 1 worst film of the year, because it just wasn't my movie. I hated watching it, which was Four Lions. I hated that movie.
That surprises me. I mean, I didn't think you'd love it, but I didn't think it'd make your top worst film.
Oh God, no! I hated every aspect of that film. At least, yeah, I did. No, I could not get into that movie. I hated it so much. I fought between that and Raising Arizona because I knew Under the Rainbow was going to be number 2. It was just whether or not Raising Arizona. But like the only reason that I gave Four Lions over Raising Arizona is because Raising Arizona still had Holly Hunter and Nick Cage, and I was like, okay, well, that one gets the 3 spot, and that one gets the number 1 spot. Go ahead and hit me. I already know what my number 1 is, so go ahead.
I didn't come up with honorable mention, so I'll jump right into it. My number 5 worst film that Sean made me watch was The Man Who Knew Too Little. Which this is one that it wasn't even actively bad so much as just completely nothing. I mean, Bill Murray cashing a paycheck, not being at all funny, nothing about the movie being funny, and I just sat there for a comedy, not laughing a single time. So that made my number 5 worst.
I love this movie so much.
Number 4, because he made it his pick, it's going to count. and that's Surf Ninjas. I will say also
I would have been shocked. I would have been shocked if this wasn't.
I will say also all 5 of these, all of them from the second half of the year. So Surf Ninjas.
Wait. Okay, no, never mind. Keep going. I don't want
to. I think, unless I missed something.
No.
Nope.
I was like, your number 1 is not from the.
No, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that one stuck in there. Okay.
Okay.
My number 3, one of the least scary horror movies ever made, Paranormal Activity, which spawned.
But it follows there. Come on.
It follows is 1,000 times better than
it's
Paranormal
fucking
Activity.
not.
Paranormal Activity is completely boring unless you're scared by a door closing. And that's about the only thing that happens over the course of 90 minutes or whatever.
Oh my god, so not true.
Number 2, a lot of people love it. I was just bored to shit by this movie and didn't think there's one exciting thing in it. That's An American Tail.
Granted, on the rewatch, I was like, I shouldn't have picked this.
And Don Bluth apparently is not for me. And actually, I already knew this, but he clearly wasn't for me because I also watched the number 1 film, which was on my list, still at number 1 worst at the half-year mark, Rockadoodle. You have horrible Don Bluth animation. You have horribly boring, pointless story. You have a live-action kid who can't act, and you have shitty music throughout. And it's just this is.
I still remember.
Maybe the worst animated movie I've ever seen.
It's not the worst animated movie ever. Food Fight's 1,000 times worse. I remember watching this before you watched it, and I have to apologize to Brian before he watches this movie because he's gonna be so mad at me. Yeah, when you told me everything was from this show, I go, oh my god, did Rockadoodle not make the list? It's like there's no way Rockadoodle didn't make that list.
No, I looked at the wrong part of my list. That's all.
All right. Before we jump into our best, what was our least valuable player, the actor in the most stinkers this year?
The actor in the most stinkers this year turned out to have a total of, I believe, 4 stinkers, and that was Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, an actor we love, has made plenty of movies we do like, but he was in Mordecai, he was in Tusk, which, oh my god, his role in Tusk was awful.
His in Tusk is horrendous.
Yeah, it was. It's just. It was.
And of course, he fudder whacked with Alice in Wonderland.
And then I'm also blanking on the last one.
Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was the worst. We had a couple other people with 3. One of them being friend Brendan Fraser. So yeah, he was the worst.
All right. Now we will go on to our best picks for that we got to watch from the others. Yours, 3 of your first half movies stayed in my top 5. And then a 4th one was in my honorable mentions. Honorable mentions for Brian's best picks that he made me watch this year: Indian Summer, After the Sunset, I, Robot are all honorable mentions that I enjoyed watching. My top 5, number 5, Fired Up. I still just love that movie. I forgot how much I love that movie. Number 4, which was, I think I would have picked this if you hadn't, which was The Guest. I still think that movie is just so freaking awesome. Number 3 is Enemy of the State. Still, in my opinion, one of the best Will Smith movies he's ever done. And my number 1 and number 2 are my number 1 and number 2 from the mid-year that has not changed, and that is Mad Max Fury Road and Kung Fu Panda. Easily the best choices of Brian throughout the year.
Yeah, I don't remember what that week was, but Mad Max is one of those that really would have been a featured, except something else was there, so I just made it my pick.
I want to say our feature was something that wasn't as well known, and we chose that because we wanted to make that the more noticeable one. But yeah. All right, what was my best choices I made you watch?
Didn't have it, no. Only one of them carried over from the mid-year. This was not this one. My number 5, I went back and forth on a few of them, but I ended up putting Finding Nemo in there. Pixar, I don't love as much as well. I don't think they're as perfect on every movie they put out like some people do. Although I enjoy most of their stuff, but this Finding Nemo, especially, I'm glad Sean had me rewatch that for the show because I forget how good that one was. It's an excellent show. Number 4 is my one carryover. And that was X2 or X-Men 2, whatever you want to call it. Number 3, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It's just a phenomenal. I mean, the whole trilogy is good, but I think Dawn is probably the best of the three. And just everything about that movie, from the way the film was made to, of course, the special effects. Andy Serkis doing a phenomenal job. Well, actually, the whole cast with the motion capture. So that was just a great movie. And 2 and 1 would have made my list no matter what they were, but it happens to be Sean's picks. Number 2 being Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and number 1 being True Romance, which I love True Romance, and I think there are a lot of people out there still haven't seen that movie, and they really should. But those are 2 of my favorite movies, like, of all time. So
there are 2 that I was shocked wasn't on your list. I figured they were going to be like 100% guarantees, and that was Little Shop of Horrors, and I figured you would have put WALL-E over Finding Nemo.
Little Shop of Horrors, was that your pick?
Yeah, that was my pick.
That absolutely should be on there instead of Nemo.
Yeah, I was like, wow, Little Shop of Horrors didn't make the list.
Yeah, I don't know if I looked at that and thought it was revisited or something.
Little Shop was my movie.
Oh, then that's why, because I think I thought it was revisited.
Yeah, no, Little Shop was it was 2 weeks ago's episode. It was our feature for Little Shop. It was Titanic. Titanic was the feature, and Little Shop was mine, and then. Or no.
Little Shop was revisited.
Shit, no, Little Shop was revisited.
You had Fighter.
Crap. Yeah, I had the Fighter. Well, crap. Then I left Little Shop off of my top 10. But I can adjust that because we're.
I was like, there's no way I would have left Little Shop off on purpose.
Oh yeah, no, Little Shop definitely. I'm gonna have to fix that on my list here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, cool. But yeah, I definitely would have thought you would put WALL-E over Finding Nemo. But anyway, now we will move on to our best overall picks of the year. Now this is strictly our feature and our revisited. We are not doing our picks, so our top 10 is literally our revisited features. I have 3 honorable mentions. I guess 4 now, because I'll just throw a Little Shop of Horrors in there as well, which I'm assuming that we're going to be talking about that later. Correct?
Yeah, sorry, so switch over to that list here. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. I also have What If.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Zombieland.
No.
And Troy.
No. Although both of those were in and out of my list, I will say.
Yeah, so those were my honorable mentions. What were your honorable mentions?
Outside of my top 10, I only ended up putting 2 on the list. Although, like I said, Troy and what's the other one you said?
Zombieland. What If, Zombieland?
No, Troy and Zombieland were 2 that I definitely were in and out of my list as well. My other 2 honorable mentions were Easy A and Edge of Tomorrow.
Not on my list. How many from the first half of the year are in your top 10?
I have to do that math here. Sorry, ask me questions I wasn't prepared for originally.
Looking at that, 2 of mine are from the first half of the year, and they're my 9 and 10. So my 1 through 8 are all the latter half of the year.
So let me see. On my top at the mid-year, here it is. Okay. Looks like roughly half of mine are from the first half.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is your number 10
then? My number 10 is This Is Where I Leave You.
What are we talking about that?
Okay.
Yeah. My number 10 is The Fifth Element.
Not in my top 10.
This is where I probably would have put Little Shop of Horrors. I wasn't going to not talk about Fifth Element because I already had it on my board.
That was my number 10 at mid-year, but some other stuff just knocked it down.
Yeah, I love Fifth Element. Chris Tucker's best performance, bar none, as Ruby. Bruce Willis acting like he didn't care, but ended up just having a performance that I love. Mila Jovovich, we usually shit on her performances, but I love her as Lilu. Gary Oldman is the weak spot of this film, but I love Fifth Element. I think we both actively love it. It's just it's one of those kind of like Galaxy Quest, when we talked about in our last episode. It was a movie that had no business being as good as it was. It ended up being one of our favorites, and our definitely a cult classic. That is why it's my number 10. My number 9 is also from the first half of the year, and that is Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Not on my list.
Hands down, probably my favorite rom-com ever. I love the cast. Jason Segel is fantastic in this. Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell, Russell Brand. First time I saw Russell Brand. The rest of the cast surrounding them are phenomenal supporting players, which is what you really need in a comedy, is a great supporting cast. Paul Rudd being one of the highlights. Hands down, probably one of my favorite lines. You know, when life gives you lemons, just toss the lemons and bail. I love this film so much. Whenever I am in a very down, sad mood, this is definitely one of the comedies I will grab and watch to make myself feel better, and that is why it's still in my top 10. What is your number 9?
My number 9 is So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Not in my top 10, but I knew it was going to be in yours.
Yeah, this is just a movie I've always loved, and it's one of the most underseen ones as far as the Mike Myers stuff. People love Wayne's World, which I like Wayne's World, but people love the Austin Powers movies, which I've not been a big fan of. But Axe Murderer, I think, is his most underrated, because this is another one of the movies where, you know, he plays multiple characters and kind of does a lot of the same kind of style of jokes he does in other movies. But this just works for me, and it's got a great supporting cast across the board, from Nancy Travis to Amanda Plummer to Anthony LaPaglia to Stephen Wright shows up in a small scene, among others. And this is just a really funny one that I loved having it on the show as an excuse to rewatch it again.
Yes, and like I said, thinking of back to audio clips that we think about with females, woman is definitely the first thing I think about when I think of an Axe Murderer. What is your number 8?
My number 8 was actually my number 1 at mid-year, and things swapped all over the place. It's like I said,
makes no sense to me, but okay.
Whatever I'm in the mood for, because honestly, when I make these lists, it's like there's like 8 movies that could constantly switch places. It can't hardly wait.
Not in my top 10.
Because that's one movie I think it was just the right movie at the right time in my life, and I love it as just like a teen comedy. This is like one of the ultimate teen comedies to me, with, as we've talked about with this and other movies, this great cast of people and a whole bunch of people who went on to have these great careers, but who were nobodies at the time, or at least just starting out. It's very funny, and it's just a great soundtrack too.
And I can never hear Paradise City without thinking of this movie. Never be able to hear Paradise City without thinking of this film. My number 8 is Titanic.
I'll talk about that later.
All right. My number 7 is what we just talked about on our last episode, Galaxy Quest.
Oh, I did not put that on my list, although it probably should have been an honorable mention.
Yes. Like I said, we literally just talked about this on our last episode. Galaxy Quest, just like I said with Fifth Element, it is a movie that should not have worked. It is a movie that probably should have been looked at as like it came out. It ended up being a near perfect film. Phenomenal cast, great writing, tons of heart, great one-liners, phenomenal cast. Introduced us to Sam Rockwell, Justin Long, also Rainn Wilson, who's barely in the movie, but it's the first thing I ever noticed him in. Hands down, one of the best scenes ever performed by Tim Allen in his career. Alan Rickman's fantastic. Sigourney Weaver. I'm blanking on his name. We just talked about him. Is it Enrico?
Enrico Colantani.
Yeah. Galaxy Quest. What's more there to say? We love that film, and that is why it's in my top 10. What is your 7? Yeah.
My number 7 is What If.
Okay.
It's really one of the best recent romantic comedies, and it's really, I mean, if not already, like one of my all-time favorites, because I mean there aren't a lot. It seems like there was like this golden age romantic comedy, but in the last 10 years or so, there aren't a whole lot that are memorable and then really stick with you. But this is one, and this is another one of those that most people have never heard of, and it went unseen. If it even got released to theaters in the US, it was a small release, and it kind of snuck out on like video on demand and DVD and stuff. But from the first time I saw it, I loved it. And it's another one of those that you just, I've become a preacher for. Just anytime I talk to someone like, you haven't seen this, you have to watch this movie. And most of them love it. Of course, Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazan are good, but the MVPs of this were the supporting cast of Adam Driver and
Mackenzie Davis.
Mackenzie Davis, sorry.
Yeah. And then, like I said, the best line, I had sex, and now I'm about to eat nachos. You've ruined my sex.
Killed my sex nacho high.
It's so great. What is your number 6?
My number 6 is Grosse Point Blank.
Not my top 10, so let's talk about it.
This is another one of those movies that just it came out at the right time in my life, and John Cusack's one of those guys who has had a very strange career. You know, he kind of hit it big in like the teen movies when he was young with Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer, which we talked about in the show, and some other stuff. He went off and did some more dramatic stuff. And he came back to comedy in a big way and did this movie, which it's a hitman comedy, but it's got, but he's like this neurotic guy who's dealing with a psychiatrist played by Alan Arkin. You got Minnie Driver as the love interest.
Mm-hmm.
Dan
Aykroyd.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd, and it was so unique because it's like it's a comedy, but there's action scenes in it, actually really decent action scenes in it.
Yeah, we were surprised at how well the choreography was. In the
both the fight choreography and the gunplay, things like that. But just the dialogue and the script is what really makes this movie, and it's really well made. And it was a return to form for comedy for John Cusack, which unfortunately I thought would like kind of respawn him getting back into that. Which he's done some things here and there, but nothing's quite lived up to that. It's one of my favorite movies of his.
My number 6 is a movie that you and I very, very fondly love that a lot of people hate. Actually, no. People that we know hate, but we love it. And that's Bad Boys 2. I mean...
Yeah. It wasn't on my list, but
I knew it wasn't going to be. Yeah. Once I saw what your list was, I was like, there's no way Bad Boys 2 is on here. Bad Boys 2, we both love this film. It's my favorite of the Bad Boys films. Yes, it's overly long, but it is just a blast to watch Will Smith and Martin Lawrence go. It's got so many great lines. It is literally moments that will just make me cry laughing because of how great it is. The whole oh God, what's the kid's name? It's not Ricky.
Reggie.
With the whole, I can't quote it because I'm gonna get in trouble. But that whole thing is great. Then there's the morgue scene. There's so much in this movie that I love. There's the rats. One rat's patch. Tell me what they look just like us. It is. I think the first movie that when Michael Bay starts to get too Michael Bay-y. But the great thing is that because you got the cast surrounding him with this, that it just works. I will never apologize for loving this movie. It is
absolutely not
too great. My number 5 is a movie that we talked about earlier this past month, and that is The Last Samurai. Yeah, I didn't think it would be either. Last Samurai, hands down my favorite Tom Cruise performance. I love this film. Ken Watanabe is phenomenal in this. He deserved his Oscar nomination. I love the way this film is directed. I love the way the cinematography looks in this film. I love the way the story is. I love everyone in the cast of this movie. I love the ebb and flows that we get throughout the film and the journey that the characters go on. The way it ends is heartbreaking, but I love how they did it. Once again, audio clip, Saki from Tom Cruise. I'll never forget that. Since the first time I saw this film, I've loved it, and every time I've watched it hereafter, I just love it more and more. But yeah, your number 5.
My number 5 is Saving Private Ryan.
That is my number 4, so let's just fucking talk about
it. Yeah, this is one of those movies. It's if you ask me about great war films, this is gonna be the first one I'm always going to talk about.
It's the go-to.
It's obviously Steven Spielberg is a master director, and you got Tom Hanks taking the lead and a great cast all around from top to bottom. I mean, everyone from like the main 5 or 6 guys that are on this mission down to people have cameos in this movie from Nathan Fillion and Paul Giamatti and Ted Danson and whoever.
Yeah,
it's everything. It's perfectly cast. And most remember about this movie is the first time I saw this movie in the theater, and just like you watch that. Everyone talks about the opening half hour of the movie with the actual assault on the beaches of Normandy, and it's just like it's the first movie that I think really puts you in the situation and feeling what it really felt like to be there. Because other war movies have portrayed things either more super heroically, or they do it more like flashy kind of action kind of way. But this is one that just it embraced the realism of it and what these guys faced, and that's what I remember most about this movie. And it's a masterful movie. To
me, outside obviously the Omaha Beach scene, but to me the other scene that really always stood out to me was the scene in the third act where obviously I'm not going to know the character names. Is it Adam Goldberg the actor.
Yeah.
When he's fighting with the German over the knife and they're rolling and it's like no, stop, and it's that scene is haunting. Because in any other action film, they pull the camera away, you don't see it, or the camera goes to the person who's doing its face, you don't see it. This week, Steven Spielberg made you live in that moment. And and then I'm blanking on the actor's name who's outside, who just
Jeremy Davies,
who could have stopped it and didn't. And then the German walked past him just looking like he's a weakling wussy who just let it happen. And then literally 10 minutes later when it all comes right back around again, this movie's amazing. It should have won Best Picture that year, but didn't. The cast is it's so fucking good. Hands down best war movie I've ever seen. But that was my 4. So go ahead with your 4 now.
My number 4, I don't think it's being on your list, and that's Top Gun.
No, it's not.
I love Top Gun. Now it's just the opposite of Saving Private Ryan, because this is not really a war film, but it's military film. But this is totally rah popcorn, trying to make it look glamorous and cool, and it's just an 80s classic. I mean, it was the star-making performance for Tom Cruise. It's basically what shot him off into the stratosphere ever since then. A sequel that's been on the most anticipated list for 2 years now. So we'll see if it comes out next year.
Yeah,
who knows? But this is just one of those. And again, you got this cast of people with not just Tom Cruise, but you got Kilmer in there. Tim Robbins was in there. You had I'm blanking on
Anthony Edwards.
I'm sorry.
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards. But this great cast. Meg Ryan as Anthony Edwards' wife in there. So it's got this great cast to it. It's Jerry Bruckheimer, Tony Scott, who I love Tony Scott movies. And this is just, like I said, one of those 80s classics I've loved since the day it came
out. My number 3, I would think it'd be in your list, but now that we're down to the bottom 3, I'm like, maybe it's not. And that is The Mask of Zorro.
It's not on my list, although it almost made the lower ends of it.
I love this movie. It's just like with Last Samurai. I've loved this movie since the first time I've seen it. And every time I watch it, I just love it more and more. The cast is fantastic. Antonio Banderas is the perfect casting choice as Zorro. Anthony Hopkins as old Zorro, I guess is what we're going to call him in this. Is fantastic. Catherine Zeta-Jones is gorgeous, and her chemistry with Antonio Banderas is off the charts. I enjoyed the villains. The action is great. There's very, very few things you can find not to love about this movie. The humor hits perfectly. The action scenes are great. The story's great. The sequel is but the first film is chef's kiss.
Yeah,
I love that. What is your 3 now? Did we do
my number 3?
Is
Sean didn't like this movie apparently because it didn't make his list, and that was Little Shop of Horrors.
Because I thought it was my pick.
This is one of those movies that you just again, another 80s film, but a musical. And even if you don't love musicals, you gotta love this, because I mean the comedy dream cast: Rick Moranis, Steve Martin, Bill Murray, John Candy, Jim Belushi is in there. It's got a ton of people, but just from a musical standpoint, it's got great songs in it. For people you didn't even know could sing, Rick Moranis and Steve Martin, these people, you're like, oh, they can sing. Who knew? But of course, Ellen Greene, who played the part on Broadway, plays it again here. She's perfect in her role. The special effects, mainly being the puppet of Audrey 2, decades ahead of its time. There's still never been, I think, a physical puppet done better than that one. And it's just it's funny. It's great musical. It's got I got nothing else to say about it. It's just perfect.
And Mean Green Mother's hands down still one of the best musical songs.
Yeah.
There. Like I said, forgot that it was one of it was revisited, or it would have been on my list. It probably would have been 9 or 10, but it definitely would have been on my list. What is your number 2?
My number 2 was my number 2 at mid-year, and that's Kick-Ass.
Did not make my list.
I love Kick-Ass, and every time I always, once I get some space from it, forget just how much I love Kick-Ass, because I watch it again and I realize how much I love it. And it's just one of those things. It's in a time when the superhero genre had started, this is kind of when they started really pumping them out. This is shortly after Iron Man things like that, and Dark Knight. But this is like one of those first ones that decided to take it and take a different take on it. It's an R-rated take on it. It's thing where this, the characters are not all necessarily likable people. You got Chloe Grace Moretz kind of hit the scene in a big way as Hit Girl. Nicolas Cage kind of gets to poke fun at himself as well as being Batman, essentially Batman. But then Aaron Taylor Johnson, he broke on the scene in a big way, and I'm actually kind of sad that he's obviously had a career since then, but he never kind of became that starring man that I thought he would, because he is phenomenal in this. And this is another one of those where the cast top to bottom is perfect, but it's just the tone and the humor were just perfect for my style, my tastes.
Oh yeah, it's a great. I think it was my number 6 at mid-year. But yeah, Kick-Ass is a great film. My number 2 did not make your list, but you know how much I love this film and how fond I am of this film, and that is Final Girls. This is probably one of my favorite horror films. I think it's phenomenal from top to bottom. The meta-ness is pitch perfect. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that the meta worked so well as this. The cast is phenomenal from top to bottom. It's my favorite.
Was it Tina? Is that her name?
Tina, yes. Tina, the character of Tina is fantastic. Malin Ackerman, her best performance, hands down. Her and is it Teresa Farmiga?
It's Thaisa, T-A-I-S. Yeah.
Their relationship as mother and daughter, and then looking back at mother's role to her. That is the heart of this film, and it should not work as well as it does. It works fantastic. The rest of the cast, Nina Dobrev, Alexander Ludwig, and Thomas Middleditch, and I'm blanking on the girl from Arrested Development. She plays his brother or sister, Thomas Middleditch's sister. She's the other friend. I'm blanking on her name. She was also just in Being the Ricardos, but she's great.
Alia Shawkat?
I think so. I love The Killer. I think it was a nice, different kind of take on Jason, but it's definitely Jason. I love the way it's shot. The cinematography of this film is fantastic. The humor is great. Like I said, Tina is hands down, and Adam Levine is hilarious in it. Oh God, the name of the song, Something's Eyes. I'm blanking on the song. It's the song that they have. Betty Davis Eyes. Betty Davis Eyes. I've never really liked that song, but I love that song because of this movie. Final Girls to me is a perfect. I hate to call it a horror because to me it doesn't feel like a horror movie, but it is a horror movie technically. But it is hands down one of my favorites, and that is why it's my number 2. And my number 1 was your number 10, which is This Is Where I Leave You. I love this film. I love it so much. Which, granted, we love all these movies. That's why they're on our list. Like we talked about 50 feature films this year. We love all 50 of them. They wouldn't have been our feature film, well, except for Napoleon Dynamite for the All Sinker episode. But we love them for a reason. But This Is Where I Leave You. This is a movie that still. I never watched it when it came out. I remember the trailer for it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll check it out at some point. Never watched it. I had to watch it earlier this year for trivia and was blown away with how much I love this film. And then I watched it again for the show. I wasn't going to watch it because I was like, oh, I just watched this recently. Went back and watched it again. I still just love this movie so damn much. Hands down, this cast is amazing. Jason Bateman, Tina Fey, Adam Driver again with his comedic chops in this film. The cast, there's like a cast of like 10 people in this film. Timothy Olyphant, Ben Schwartz as Boner. Come on. it's just I love this movie so much. This movie is the perfect kind of family comedy / drama, but mostly comedy. I love each moment that every character gets in this film. Mm-hmm. I love just everything about this movie. This is one of those movies I don't know if it was just I watched it at the right time for me to really, really sink into this, but I can always go. This movie just feels like a warm hug to me. I can always just go back and watch this movie when I just need to feel good because I just love the performances. Adam Driver's performance in this is a standout. I never knew how funny he was until I watched this and What If.
Because I wish he'd do more comedy. Yeah.
yes, he definitely needs to do way more comedy because Adam Driver is so damn funny. But yeah, this was your number 10, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you've already pretty much covered everything. It's. I believe for me, it starts and ends with the cast, which is phenomenal from top to bottom. But also, I mean, like you said, the writing of it is so well done because it is a comedy. It's definitely a comedy, but it's very heartfelt. I mean, there's a lot of the interpersonal relationships between the characters and how they relate to each other. And then when they're talking about memories of their father and things like that, it's really well done. It's very touching.
Yeah, and so many great quotes in the film.
Oh yeah.
I could start, but then I'm just gonna keep going and we're not gonna stop. But those are best movies of this year's Weekend Crusaders. And now that
Do I get to talk about number one?
Yeah, you're number one. Sorry, okay. For some because we were talking about them both, I just thought they'd.
Yeah, my number one was somewhere on your list. I don't remember where it was. When I was trying to make my list, I had to decide: am I going for the ones that, like, I had the most fun watching, or what I think are the best movies? I decided to put it number one, and that's this one here, Titanic. It's one of those movies that it gets unfairly criticized. I talked about this in the show when we covered it last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And it's the bottom line though is it is a great movie. It is super well made on a technical standpoint. The acting in it's great. It's got a great cast. It's got a great love story. It's got a great historical story to it. It's got good, the way action and things are done as well. And it's just a movie that deserves, I think, all the credit it got, despite all the backlash it got since then.
Yeah, Titanic is fantastic. Like I said, the cast. I mean, this movie should not have worked. It shouldn't have worked. It should have been an epic failure. It was way over budget, but James Cameron just knows how to make things work for the most part. And like, so we'll see what happens when Avatar 2 finally comes, and 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, or whatever he does with it. But yeah, like I said, I was talking about this on the last show. I hated how jaded I got about this film at a younger age because of the whole Leo Kate Winslet romance. But now watching it, the romance is perfect. The whole scene of the Titanic is done masterfully. It's horrific in the most authentic kind of way. Everything about this movie works, even though there are still some aspects of the film that I disagree with, such as like the old lady throwing the heart of the ocean in the ocean instead of giving it to Bill Paxton. Plus, Leo could have survived at the end of the film. But I love Titanic. Titanic is fantastic, and it's one of those movies that I went from like actively hating it to being like, I can't believe I've been so wrong about this. And it was just more or less like jaded teenage years acting out against it. And I'm mad at younger me for doing that because Titanic is a fantastic film. So that is our top 10 films of the Weekend Crusaders. And now that we've gone through all that, it's now time for our MVP of the year. What actor or actress, first off, showed up in the most films this year, and then who had the most positive films of the year?
Well, they're both the same person, actually.
Okay.
Because we had 2 actors that were in 8 films, those being Seth Green and Samuel L. Jackson. One of Samuel L. Jackson's, though, was The Spirit. So he was only in 7 positive picks, which makes Seth Green our MVP of the year. He showed up in Josie and the Pussycat, Idle Hands, Italian Job, Can't Hardly Wait, Austin Powers, Spy Who Shagged Me, Without a Paddle, Sex Drive, and Krampus.
Oh yeah, that's right, because he did the voice in Krampus.
And then coming up just behind them with 7 films each was Bill Paxton with 7 all positive, so he tied Samuel L. Jackson for second place. And Brendan Fraser had 7 films, but we already talked about how he had a few stinkers in there.
Yeah, Seth Green's been like the one thing throughout the entire year. We're like, man, Seth Green's in the lead. Like, Seth Green's not gonna win, and we just kept going. Like, fuck, Seth Green's gonna win this thing.
Well, you know what? And what pushed him over was Krampus. He was a voice of one of the little gingerbread people. Elves. That's what it was. So it's like that little tiny role of voice only is what put him over the top. And then I will say our number 1 actress was in 5 films, one of them being a stinker, and that was Salma Hayek.
Yeah, there was that 1 or 2 weeks where Charlize Theron was popping up, but yeah, she didn't reach Salma Hayek numbers. Yeah. Faculty probably pushed her over the edge. But yeah, so guys, that's it. That is the Weekend Crusaders, year 1. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, we are going to take at least the next year, if not 2 years off for the Weekend Crusaders, so we can allow for some time to do some different movies and some other films. So that way it doesn't feel as stale or as dated, doing the same basically movies that we're going to do this year. So this is the final episode for the Weekend Crusaders for a little while, but that's not the end of me and Brian. We have so much more to talk about. Obviously, we still will be doing our reviews when we do spoiler reviews. We have so many new ideas coming at the end of the year, or coming up this upcoming year. We've got some ideas for certain things that we want to do, some certain shows we want to do. We just cannot do those while still doing the Weekend Crusaders, because the Weekend Crusaders just takes such a big chunk of our time. So we hope you guys will stick with us over the next year with all the new stuff that we're going to bring to you. But coming up here very shortly, we will have our best and most surprising films of 2021 and our worst and most disappointing films of 2021. And then, of course, we will also have our most anticipated films for 2022. It's definitely going to be some hot topics, some very, very, very hot takes on some of these films. So stay with us on those. I hope you guys enjoyed this year of the Weekend Crusaders, where Brian and I had to watch 250 movies for this show. I know our view count's not nearly as high, but if you guys ever come back to these and rewatch these, it definitely was a fun ride. It was a fun journey doing this with Brian. Wouldn't change anything except for some of the stinkers for making us watch them. But I had a blast. Brian, any last words for the Weekend Crusaders?
No, man, this was fun, and we watched a lot of movies, and a lot of them I wish I hadn't, but it was fun.
Yeah. So anyway, for the final time for the Weekend Crusaders, my name's Sean Wasserkroop. That is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Weekend Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.